The morning after Sir Handel had gone away, the Fat Controller spoke to the other engines. Sir Handel's absence means you shall all have to do a little bit more work. Peter, Sam and Rheneas, will you take over Sir Handel's truck work? Of course, sir.
We'll do our best,
promised the engines. Duncan smirked. He was glad he didn't have to take them. As for you, Duncan, announced the Fat Controller as he spun round to face Duncan, I need you to take the morning passenger train. Bah! Cried out Duncan. Passengers under his starts. If passengers can't satisfy you, Duncan, then I'm sure I can sort you out with some truck work instead.
Although we all know how you like to stay cleaned and polished.
Duncan just wheezed crossly. Now Duncan was not the politest of engines at the best of times, and early morning certainly did him no favours. Get in quickly, no, he ordered as soon as he stopped to the station. I'm a busy engine and I've got no time for dawdling. Now the passengers were grumpy too. They became grumpier still as he rocked and rolled along the track. Get rid of them, get rid of them, he chanted. At the next station, the passengers complained about what a horrid engine he was.
I miss Sir Handel, he knows how to take a train.
Duncan just grumbled under his breath. When's that impatient puffer coming back? Duncan muttered crossly. He saw Rusty and some hedge cutters. They were very busy trimming trees and bushes and putting the branches into trucks. But to Duncan, he didn't think they were working hard at all. Stop daydreaming and do some work, Duncan demanded.
This is an important job, replied Rusty, a little offended. Without me, your passenger runs would be very uncomfortable.
Duncan didn't understand what Rusty meant. Pah, twigs couldn't hurt me, he retorted as he puffed away. Later that day, Duncan's run was going smoothly. His coaches were full, the rails were dry, and they were making good time. When they passed through the bridge, however, they stopped. There in front of him were some blown hedge cuttings that had been swept up by the wind. His crew got out to investigate. We'll never get through that lot, exclaimed the fireman. Ha! Don't tell me you believe Rusty's silly tales, laughed Duncan. Fine, have it your way then, warned the driver. If we stop to clear the track, we'll be late. As Duncan got closer, he saw the cutting spikes. He became a little nervous, but all the same, he puffed bravely onwards. As he puffed carefully along, the branches slid aside. Then he came to a stretch where the cuttings were brambles. Duncan began to regret his boasting. Not only were the thorns prickly, but they started to get caught in each other, and the branches stayed firmly put. Ouch! Exclaimed Duncan suddenly, and stopped. I can't move, he complained. His fireman got out to check. It's no good, he said at last. You've got brambles caught in your valve gear, and steam can't get into your cylinders. We shall have to cut you out. Duncan shuddered. He shut his eyes and prepared for the worst. The fireman put on thick gloves. Then, while he tried to clear what he could, the driver went to ask the guard if he had a knife. Some of the passengers had knives too and came to help, but even then the job took longer than expected, and by the time Duncan was freed, there was no hope of getting the passengers round the lake and back in time. Duncan's driver apologised to the passengers, but they didn't mind. We enjoy the adventure, they laughed. The driver then rang the Fat Controller, who immediately sent Rusty off to clear the line. He returned that night with a long line of trucks. You can run your train normally now, Rusty proudly announced to Duncan. Duncan was relieved. Oh, thank you, he said. Without you, my journeys would be a thorn in your side, suggested Rusty. Exactly, exclaimed Duncan. The next morning, Duncan arrived feeling much happier. Thank you all for the help yesterday. I'm sorry I was rude. I promised not to rock and roll. Well, I'll try not to anyway. Duncan was true to his word. He made occasional slip-ups, but most of the time he glided the rails smoothly. "Thank you for the smooth ride. I hope you're taking my train home as well." Duncan smiled and had to admit that perhaps not all passengers were bad.